Good afternoon, podcast listeners everywhere. Welcome to After the Bell, a Stunt Brothers production. I'm Martin Stubel.
And I'm Roy Hunt, and we share your pain, having taught a combined 70 years.
70 years?
I know, wow. So get out your marking, organize your supplies, or just pour yourself a coffee.
I think I need something stronger.
That's okay. And listen, engage, and interact with After the Bell, a podcast for you, the hardworking, dedicated teacher who wants free lesson plans, free advice, and a free meal.
Oh, I always show up for a free meal. Well, this isn't the box. Mm-mm. This is not the recording studio.
This is much more relaxed than being in the box.
You're having your
some
coffee.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend. Episode 71 looks good on us.
Yes.
It's very chill.
It's very chilled. Season 2.
Season 2.
Episode 41.
That's correct.
There we go. How about that?
We're into June, and we are live doing video because we have a guest later on that we'll tell you about. Mm-hmm. So it's a video episode as well. And we don't have the recording studio, or the box as we call it. So we decided, let's just go to my back garden.
Yeah.
And it kind of fits because a year ago, probably almost this very moment, we met with someone.
We met with Victor Elderton.
Yeah,
yes.
So you can hear the plane overhead. You can hear the stream going. This is live. This is not Uber technology, right?
And this is not AI.
No, never.
Because if this is what we're given for AI, then
we worked on de-aging,
sad.
And this is what we got. This is what we're really 105, but you're right. A year ago, we had Victor Elderton on.
Yes.
Who is just a champion of all things outdoors,
yes.
right? And we did it here in the back garden. It was a wonderful chat. And it's also timely because Victor is going to now defend his dissertation. He's going to be Dr. Elderton. And this month, it's very exciting. He's defending his dissertation, which I can't believe the stress of that.
What is it? Like you have feats of strength?
Yeah. Got to arm wrestle.
I got to arm wrestle. They pull out the head of dean of the university, and he's got arms like this. He says, "Okay, take me on."
Good luck, Victor. We'll cheer from the sidelines.
I guess that's not what it is.
Yeah. But technology, sometimes when you do get away from it, as we discussed with Victor, and as we're discussing, I still like technology and it has its place. But there's a calm now that we're not in the studio. I guess partly because I'm in my back garden.
Yeah.
And that's my happy place.
You feel
right?
the cool breeze.
Yeah.
You can see behind us the leaves moving on the trees.
Yeah.
There is a sense of sort of relaxation that comes from being outside. We're still in front of the technology.
We are.
In front of the computer, and we have the microphones here. But there is a sense of ease right now that comes from being here.
Yeah.
And I guess it's almost looking at like, right, if you were intensely using technology and you're in that environment, but if you I think we're kind of moving towards kind of the middle of it. We're using some technology, but we're not completely
we're not going back to the Stone Age. It's
surrounded.
We have to do a podcast. Like, how do we do a podcast without technology? Would we be like the town crier in the square?
Oh, I'd be good at that.
You just give a big yell?
I have great projection.
Yeah, hear ye.
Yes,
After the bell.
The neighbors would
playing.
be calling the police on us. Like, those guys are screaming at each other in the backyard.
The after the bell yellers again. That's when they say, hang 'em. We're going back to the Middle Ages. Who knows where we'd end up.
That's like, oh, we've got a stockade down the street. We'll take care of you.
Yeah. But this is perfect for today's episode because I read The Atlantic, a really well-established publication.
Okay.
It goes back to the 1800s, one of the premier publications of America that they write about so many detailed things. And I subscribe to The Atlantic, and I'm flipping through reading The Atlantic, and there's this article about someone called Dylan Kane, who's a math teacher in Colorado. Do you think he taught grade 7 math for many years? Mm-hmm. Totally was into the technology, had his Chromebooks, which a lot of schools kind of brought on, especially in COVID.
Yeah.
Right? And he recently decided to ditch all that, to try teaching without. He's certainly in no way anti-technology, and that will come out.
Yeah.
But he decided to try, and he's getting a lot of discussion going on because of the success and the change in the behavior of the students he's noticed. So he's the guy. We're going to go to Colorado.
Wow.
We're going to go.
Pack a bag?
We're going to Leadville, Colorado, I believe. I'll confirm that with him when we talk to him, right?
Okay.
Which is even higher than Denver, which is the mile-high city.
Okay.
Leadville is 10,000 and something feet, so it's quite high up. So I don't know.
Sure it's not Leadville?
Lead. I think it's, well, let's ask him, because I think it's lead because it was a silver mining town.
Oh, okay.
That's when it was established by these two prospectors in the 1800s.
Okay.
And that was why they named it, I think, connected to lead, right? Even though it was silver. So I don't know. Let's find out when we get to that. So when we go to Leadville, we go to this major mile-high city in town and talk to Dylan Kane, and just about, like, this is why I like this organic part, because we've heard people talk about it. We've had the thinkers talk about it. But to me, it sounds like Dylan's putting this into action.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Exactly. I love it because there is a lot of talk. There's technology. We should limit technology. There are governments that are trying to see if they can prevent kids from going on to certain social media platforms. Yeah. But they're talking about it. But this is someone who is not all talk, just action.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear what kind of results he's had, and I imagine there'll be a few comments from some teachers and parents that would be interesting to hear too.
Yeah, and as they say, he's got boots on the ground, and so let's go to Colorado.
All right.
Going on a field trip to Colorado to talk to Dylan Kane.
Let's go. Today on After the Bell, we're joined by Dylan Kane, a Colorado teacher who is part of an international conversation about one of the biggest issues facing education today, technology in the classroom.
Dylan Kane is a National Board certified high school math teacher in Leadville, Colorado. He often writes about the intersections of research and practice in math education. I've read many of his posts on Substack, and they are excellent. Dylan's decision to dramatically reduce the use of screens in his classroom recently caught the attention of The Atlantic, where he was profiled for challenging the assumption that more technology automatically leads to better learning.
At a time when schools are investing heavily in devices, apps, and digital platforms, Dylan has been asking a different question. What might students be losing when screens become the center of the learning experience? His observations about student attention, engagement, relationships, and what he calls the return to genuine classroom community have resonated with many, and he sure caught our attention too.
So grab your coffee, put your phone on silent, at least for the next hour, and join us as we welcome teacher, writer, and international conversation starter, Dylan Kane. Dylan, welcome to After the Bell.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. So
we're gonna start with the ABC, 1, 2, 3. I will do the ABC. Martin will do the 1, 2, 3. Are you ready? And
I'm ready.
I know we always say there is no wrong answer, but when anyone says there is no wrong answer, people sort of start to sweat it out.
yeah, so don't worry.
But don't worry about it. All right. A, hiking in the Rocky Mountains or skiing in the Rocky Mountains?
Ooh. Hiking.
Okay.
Hiking. Are you an avid hiker?
Hiker and trail runner.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And you're like Leadville, I believe, is right in the Rockies?
Yeah,
correct?
it's the highest altitude city in the United States. So
Wow.
I'm at about 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters for the metric folks.
Because they always talk about Denver, right, being the mile-high city, but you top it, eh?
Closer to 2 miles high. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness.
Amazing.
Wow. Okay. B, a beautiful mind or Goodwill hunting?
Goodwill hunting.
And C, a Wi-Fi outage or a photocopier jam?
No Wi-Fi outage. Easy.
Why is that?
First of all, they happen pretty frequently where I work because it's up in the mountains. It's a small rural town. So there's just like one line in, right, or something. And so probably like 5 times this year. And it just doesn't bother me being a paper and pencil guy. But photocopier, we use lots of paper, and there's nothing worse than being kind of on the spot, right? Like you got to get those copies for next period, and
there's 10 people in the line up behind you, right?
Or the toner is out, and whoever finished the toner didn't replace it.
So often they don't.
So. Or you walk up to the photocopier and it's jammed before you even start.
Yeah.
I am a proud toner replacer, photocopier unjammer. At a previous school, when the director of operations, the person in charge of that stuff, was out for a vacation, I was the person who was the second in command just for the copiers. Nothing else. Just if the copiers get jammed,
you were the guy.
Call Dylan. Dylan will deal with it, at least for this week.
There was a special code over the PA system, right?
Yeah.
For you to go. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Dylan, do you have a favorite teacher when you were a student, when you were in elementary or high school that stands out?
I had a lot of great teachers. I think one who I always remember is Miss Shepard, was my senior year English teacher in an English literature class, and was just great at getting kids thinking about stuff that they wanted to read and balancing reading some stuff together with kind of encouraging us to find books that we loved on our own. And that was really a turning point for me in my personal enjoyment of reading.
Yeah. Was there one book that stands out that she kind of got you onto?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like it's a bit of a blur for me exactly which books I read, because of her. I do remember, Toni Morrison's Beloved is a really hard read. I didn't love reading it with her, but I loved the conversations we had about it. And I just still remember some of the specific things she said around some of the kind of plays on words from that book. So
wonderful. Okay, number 2, I got 2 mathematicians for you. Archimedes or Pascal?
Ooh, I mean, this is based on kind of shallow knowledge, not an expert here, but my memory is that Archimedes had these ingenious constructions to prove different things, and I just have a memory of loving some of those. Not that I could recreate them in this conversation.
No, fantastic, great. And Dylan, if you had only one piece of music that you could listen to for the rest of your life, you couldn't listen to anything else, you don't have to play it over and over again, but let's say you're on a deserted island, you have this one piece, you play it when you want to. Is there one piece that stands out?
Can I take a whole album?
Yeah, sure. Sure. I'll give you an album.
I'll take Taylor Swift's Red.
Okay, great. Good. What is it about Red that stands out for you?
I mean, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, and I just think it's a good album top to bottom. It's kind of like her transition from country more towards pop. You get a bit of both sides. You get the songwriting. You get some of the energy of her more modern side. So
I love her Folklore album.
Folklore is great.
That was great.
All right.
Let's go. Let's get into it.
You were the early believer in classroom technology. What caused you to embrace the adoption of technology?
I mean, I think the big part of it is just, as a teacher, I've always felt like I'm pretty unsatisfied with my success in the classroom, that I just have a lot of students who often feel frustrated or feel like they aren't learning, or I feel like even when I have some successes, student understanding isn't as flexible as I would like it to be. And I think, to me, a lot of the promise of technology was around kind of helping to improve some of those outcomes, especially for students who really struggle with math, helping them visualize, helping them get better feedback. I mean, I think early on the promises of technology were kind of everything. You name it. You name a challenge in the classroom, and it could meet students where they are. It could give them instant feedback. It could give them more practice.
Field, right?
It can customize it for their interests, all these sorts of things. And so I think my optimism was pretty broad when I first started using it.
Was there a moment when you thought, no, this isn't working? Was there one that stands out, or was it just did a process slowly unravel?
I mean, I think it happened slowly, but I think a big part of it was just realizing that just because someone can do something with technology doesn't mean that they've learned something from it.
Okay.
So I've always been a huge user of Desmos. And I love Desmos. I actually used a Desmos activity today in my class by projecting it up front and having students answer questions like verbally or on mini whiteboards. And I was really excited about the promise early on, but realized that a lot of students were kind of like guessing and checking their way through some things and just not retaining what you might think they would retain, given how cool and how flashy some of the activities seem.
So you went from hauling Chromebooks through the hallway to your classroom to unplugging them. How did your colleagues and administration and parents think about what did they think about your decision?
So I would say the biggest thing I would emphasize is that there hasn't been much of a reaction.
Nice.
I have yet to hear a comment from a parent.
Okay.
I did parent-teacher conferences in March, and no one brought it up. And I have a lot of other stuff to talk about, right, about students.
Yeah.
And, I'm not like soliciting their opinions. I thought that was interesting. I would say, administrators didn't really notice at first. Talked about it later. Didn't seem like a big deal. Our tech guy was the first person to notice. He was like, "Hey, I haven't heard from you in a few weeks. Are you doing okay?" Because before I would always be saying, "Hey, like this student has a Chromebook issue, that student has a Chromebook issue," and all of a sudden I went silent. And colleagues, I would say they've been supportive, but there's one who I think I've converted, who is like very close to low tech now, but she was pretty low tech before. And I think for the most part, I mean, it's now just part of what I do. And I work in a school where people do a lot of different things. And that's that.
And was it January when you first started this?
Yeah.
Is it that recent? Yeah. Was there anything that very first month that you noticed right away? Or did it take a while to see a difference in student behavior and outcomes?
I mean, like the first thing I noticed was just that the technology can be such a pain, right? Like I spend so much time... the Wi-Fi's out, so I'm scrambling, or like the login doesn't work for this one student, and now I'm like trying to problem solve this one student's issue, or just things as simple as like I don't have a charger, or my stuff like that. Like that stuff was just out the window. I think that was the first thing, and like the simplest thing. But despite it being really simple, like that has really made a huge difference just in my ability to run class smoothly and focus on students and focus on learning.
Yeah, when you talk about that, it always reminds me of any presentations you go to, and everyone's comment often is technology is great until it doesn't work. Like someone's doing a PowerPoint or something, whatever it was, whatever it has been at different stages of technology. The great presenters were just ones that could get up and speak and talk about it and be engaging. But when you base it on technology, it's as good as your Wi-Fi. It's as good as your connection. It's as good as your laptop. Yeah.
So you've talked about how students pay more attention now. What does that attention look like in the classroom?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is that I think when screens come into the classroom, they bring a lot of student habits with them. Or like students have certain habits around the ways they interact with screens. And the biggest one is just that once they are paying attention to a screen, it is very hard to shift their attention to something else. Right. It's not impossible, right? But there's this transaction cost every time. And we could sit here and have a really like in the weeds debate around like, should you tilt the screens down? Should you turn them around? Should you shut it entirely? Right. And like, I've tried all those different things, and we could like get into it there, but just taking them out of the classroom, it's not like students are suddenly paying perfect attention to every single thing I say.
No.
But there's one fewer thing I'm fighting against. And I do think, just subjectively speaking, I think students today have a different relationship with screens than students did 10, 15 years ago when I started using technology, just because of the habits that they are bringing from outside of the classroom.
Mm-hmm. And I think we are kind of programmed to look up at screens. Like I think if I go to a restaurant or a bar that has TVs all around, I could be engaging in great conversation. I know I shouldn't look up at these, I don't care about basketball over here or football over there, but I start looking at it. And I think I've read it's almost an evolutionary thing. You you're in Africa and there's that lion moving, you're going to look up. You're going to be aware of it. And somehow I think screens captivate us in that way.
Yeah, well, because screens are always changing, right? That's that's part of what they do as a piece of technology, right? And so I think that's part of why, like you said, our like evolutionary bias towards paying attention to them.
Right.
But a lot of the time, what we want students to do is actually to pay attention to something that doesn't change, right? To like slow down and think about the meaning behind what's in front of them rather than trying to like get on to the next thing.
Right. Attention has come up a lot in our podcast lately, and the idea of, you always heard people say, well, kids these days, their attention spans are only a minute long, so we got to teach to that. Do you think attention can be taught? Do you think we can expand the length of time one can have attention, or is it something we've changed because of screens? Is it hardwired now?
So my read is that the like fundamental attention span, I don't think has changed much. But I would frame it around habits. I think students come into the classroom with a lot of habits from their lives and from the different like attention profile of the stuff that they're experiencing in their lives. But we have the chance to help students build new habits.
Yes.
Right? And so I think that requires some intentionality, right? We're kind of swimming upstream a little bit. Yeah. I think it's harder to do that than it was before. But I think on like a fundamental, like, neuroscientific level, I don't think there's anything dramatic that has changed inside of our students' brains if we can kind of reset some of those habits and build our own routines and build kind of our own culture around what attention looks like in our classrooms.
Yeah, I often talk about these Zen tangles I used to do with my class, and they have to, it's just this art thing, really, fine line drawers and focus, and they really have to concentrate and do the art. And when we first tried it, get through 5 minutes, it was too much. Eventually, they could go an hour, and they were so focused and concentrating. And then I'd say, how do you feel? And they go, my brain, we talk about what was going on in the brain, how calm they felt, right? And it's something we've lost, but I think we can rediscover it, right? We could have new habits for sure.
So did you initially talk to your students and say, we're not going to use technology in the classroom, or did you just go ahead and they found out from the fact that there was no technology in the classroom? And what were the students' responses by not using technology?
Yeah, so I mean, I told students it was an experiment. I said, I'm going to try this for a month. I said, at the end of the month, I'm going to give you a survey and ask you what you think.
Nice.
And then I'll make a decision, and I'll tell you what we're going to do going forward. The students really took it in stride. I had a couple students who were like, yes, this is awesome. I didn't have anyone who was really negative about it at the beginning. Okay. I had a lot of students who were like, yeah, wow, like we use Chromebooks a lot. Like, nice to have a break. And then we dove in, and like, a few days later, it was all forgotten. It was just the new way we do things.
Wow.
And
I like that.
When you go back to when you were using screens more often and computers, you've talked about it's like gravity. It's pulling them in to look at that screen. Can you describe what it was like before when you were trying to teach a lesson and they all looked engaged, but they really were not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it looked like a couple different things. I think I really changed the way I teach with technology. Like when I was using it 5-10 years ago, I would often stop students because I would notice something people were getting confused about, or that just like it's worth talking about as a class, and I would stop everyone and we would talk about it. And I was doing that less because it felt like there was more transaction cost in trying to pause the class, bring their attention towards like up front, towards a piece of student work, something else, and then to get everyone back on the screens again. So it had kind of already changed the way I was doing that. But I think some examples are, I would just see students staring at their screens, or if I asked them to close them, just like trying to like lift them up. And I often use Desmos activities, and Desmos has a pause button. Right? So like their screens would be paused, and they're like waiting to see if it's unpaused, right? And like to look back at it. And I think that's one big example of the gravity. The second is like I've loved just not having Chromebooks on students' desks. Like I think it's just one more thing that I think takes a little bit of space in their brains. And And it feels like a kind of a subjective thing, right? It's just like my judgment of like the stuff that like we're just always like fiddling with it, and I think it just pulls students in a way that pulls their attention away from what I want them to be learning.
Yeah. In the Atlantic article, you talk about Jared Cooney Horvath and how you had read The Digital Delusion, and I've also read that book, and I've read Jonathan Haidt's Anxious Generation. Which gets a lot of buzz. Now, Horvath blames technology for the widely documented decline in student achievement. You've said you actually disagree with Horvath a bit in that, and you don't think it is the primary culprit behind declining test scores. Why?
I mean, we can get into the weeds around, like, I basically think it's a correlational result, and he plays with the numbers a bit, and I think I can push back on some of the specifics. But at a high level, test scores have been declining across the entire developed world for the past 10 or 15 years. Yeah. Test scores have been declining for tests that countries give to working age adults, or like adults who have been out of schools for decades. And I think it's reasonable to think about the role of technology in those declines, right? Like I think technology, social media, short form video, like all these things that kind of are sources of cognitive automation that just prevent us from having to think as hard about stuff. I think are reasonable culprits for those declines. Horvath's specific thesis is that classroom technology, right, like putting Chromebooks in front of kids in classrooms is the cause there. And I just think you look at this happening at about the same time across different states and countries, across different ages. I just don't think it's going to be that neat and tidy of like cause and effect. And one of the reasons that I often bring this up is I think we should set reasonable expectations. I have become an advocate against classroom technology, not to cut it down to zero, right, but to significantly reduce the amount of screen time students have in schools. But I'm not saying that as the like miracle cure, right, for everything that's hard in schools. I think it'll probably help a little bit, but if you want to create a great education for kids, there are so many things that matter. And I think technology is just one small piece of that puzzle. And so I think setting clear expectations, like I would not want someone to listen to things I say and cut technology out of their school and expect their test scores to skyrocket the next year. That's not going to happen. It is just not in line with any of the evidence we have about schools and testing and education. So that's the big thing I emphasize.
Dylan, I think that's really wise, because I started teaching in 1990. And I could tell you the number of miracle cures that have come along, in those years of teaching, right? And a good teacher just has to kind of look at it, okay, take a little bit from here, navigate it, or you're going to get whiplash if you constantly change with education. There's always that person that says, this is the one. Yeah. Well, it's a complex thing to understand how kids learn and what causes their decline, right? And I think there's many things going on right now. Yeah.
Yep. Did you actually have any students who did learn better from using technology? That benefited from having screens in a classroom?
Yeah, so I can't point to any like obvious examples. I will say one thing that comes to mind is that I think technology is great for very motivated students. I think in 2026, we are living in a golden age of learning resources for anyone who is self-motivated. Anything you want to learn. There are resources online, there are courses, there's ways to practice and get feedback that didn't exist decades ago. And that's something I benefit from, right? Like I, just in the last like 5 years, I've become like a mediocre self-taught chess player. And the resources online for teaching yourself chess are amazing and just far beyond what existed a couple decades ago. And so I think students who are very motivated to practice on their own, right, to like realize that they're confused about something and go home and just like bang their head against the screen until they figure it out. Paper and pencil isn't a great resource for that, right? Like it's hard for me to print out something every single day for that student to go and, go through that process. And there's so many awesome things online. Now a student can totally do that, right? But if you're kind of like a tech forward teacher, if you're already using a lot of these online resources, they have a fluency, right, and a ease with those tools that they can just take this thing we're already using and spend more time on it, right? And so it's hard for me to point to a specific student I teach who I'm like, you would do better if I were using technology more. But I do think that's a use case that teachers and schools should think about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always, right, when I was younger, I always went to the library, right? That's where all that information was. And so I would go through and I'd find the books that I wanted. And oftentimes I would tell my students, you have this computer, you have the sum total of all the information available at your fingertips in the world, but you're watching cat videos.
Yep.
But I believe that's because it's for entertainment, but not necessarily productivity. And I think if you're motivated, like you say, you're a motivated individual, you can get a vast amount of information from using technology. And if not, then it's an expensive paperweight and another TV for someone.
Yeah, and I would say the majority of students fall in the cat videos side of things. And I understand it. Like learning requires effort.
Adults do.
Totally. Yeah. Learning requires effort, right? That's just like basic physics. It takes energy and focus and time to learn stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think there is something that for some reason really motivates some people. If we could figure that out and put it in a bottle, like, sign me up.
Yes.
We have not figured that out, and in the meantime, I think I like my approach for the vast majority of students, while also recognizing that I want to really keep doors open for students who are excited and want to bound ahead.
I like the way you say learning requires an effort. Like, learning is hard.
Yes.
It's really hard to master something.
Yeah.
And we've tried to make it sound like it's easy. You can learn a language like that, whatever it is. You can play guitar like that. No, all those things are really hard. You've got to do it over and over again. It's going to take practice, and sometimes it's going to be frustrating.
Yeah.
And I think we need to revisit that sometimes. Now, you also, when you went back, you revisited pen and paper, right? You got that back. What surprised you when you switched back to more pen and paper rather than completing assignments on the Chromebooks?
So I think the biggest thing, and it connects to what we were just talking about with motivation, is that there's this idea with technology that we have like a greater ability to respond to student thinking or to catch misconceptions right away, right? Because like we just get so much data from these technological tools. My experience was that data was often overwhelming. And it wasn't great for us to all be in the classroom and I'm staring at my screen and the students are staring at their screens, and it becomes a little bit like why are we all here? Why are we all in the same room? Right? Why not just like put us all in our own separate soundproof booth? Right? So with pencil and paper, while I have to put some effort in to like gather the information, to walk around the room and say, all right, I want to look at everyone's number 3 and see what students said for number 3, right? And like use that to figure out what to do next. I felt more in touch with student thinking, right? And with just like the tenor of the class, like,
right,
are we getting it or do we need to slow down? And I think me being in touch with that and just like spending more time walking around the room and looking at student thinking and like interacting with their work, I think that improved motivation and effort from students, right? Because that human connection, like me expressing, hey, I'm walking around because I care about you and I care about your thinking and I want to make sure you're learning. I think that really made a difference for student motivation. And that's totally possible with screens, but there's something that's just impersonal about them. And it's very easy for students to kind of hide behind a screen and to feel anonymous and to not get noticed and to be confused and a little ashamed and to just say, I don't want anyone to see this right now. Yeah. And that still happens with paper, but I think it happens less.
Yeah.
Countries have moved ahead on with bans on smartphones. Australia is the first one to come to mind. What do you think about that?
I'm for it. I think my school just went with a pretty strong smartphone ban this year.
Okay.
And I think it's been fantastic. I'm a huge fan. I also think, similar to what I was saying earlier about technology, I don't want to pretend that it's going to cure everything, right? There was just a recent study suggesting that it maybe didn't lead to learning gains, at least in the short term, and that's just one study on one specific
and it's been
methodology.
Such a short time, right?
Yeah. So I don't want to put too much stock in that. Here's an interesting anecdote. The school I work at, I would guess last school year we had, so I work in a 7th through 12th grade high school. And I'm in the 7th and 8th grade wing, right? So we're kind of in our own corner. We share teachers and classrooms and all this stuff. I would estimate we had somewhere between like 7 and 10 fights last year. I think this year we've had 1. And one reason is those fights are often started by students messaging each other on their phones. And they're aggravated by students then spreading word that there's going to be a fight on their phones, right? Or they use their phones to coordinate where to meet up, or they're filming it in the bathroom or something like that, right? And so I think there are academic benefits, but there are also just social and emotional benefits. It's so lovely to go into the cafeteria and the students are not all staring at their phones, right? They're talking to each other. They're doing stupid stuff, and that's what they should be doing.
They should be doing that.
I just love seeing it.
How does it work, the band at your school? Do they have to put them in a pouch at the beginning of the day, or how does it play out?
So we actually do both. For 7th and 8th grade, we do phone safes. So the students put their phone in a safe at the beginning of the day. They get it back at the end. If they are caught with a phone at any time in between, there are some pretty significant consequences involving parents having to come and pick up the phone. We went with the pouches for 9th through 12th grade, just because 9th through 12th graders come and go a lot more. Many of them take community college classes. They have free periods. That hasn't gone as well. I think they say it's an improvement, but the teachers of the older grades are a little bit jealous of us in terms of how smoothly our system has gone.
Were the parents quite supportive?
On
the way, or
and I mean, I think our district did a good job. I think we were frustrated because our district spent a year creating a committee and talking about the policy, and it took forever, but it got a lot of buy-in, right? And so the teachers last year said, "Hey, can we just do this? Can we just do the thing we know we're going to do?" And the answer was no. We have to go through the committee. And I think one benefit of that has been that the parents have been really bought in, and I have not heard any complaints about it.
You've talked about this with teaching. You get a better sense of where they're at, but it's also harder to teach that way, right? And I think our whole life is kind of whether it's parents giving kids who are 5 years old an iPad just to stay out of their hair, right? I think we've all found these different ways with screens to kind of make our life easier, but sometimes it needs to be harder. Did you find the teaching more rewarding, though, once you got the screens out of the way?
Yeah, definitely. And one reason I've stuck with it is just that it's kind of like holding me accountable. I think a lot of the things that were easier about teaching were things that were less effort for me to prep, and then a little less effort in the classroom, and a little bit less learning. And each of those differences is small, right? And so I think the reason I liked kind of going cold turkey is it helped me see what all of those small differences added up to.
Right.
Did you find it more exhausting?
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, and I also just think, something I have felt about teaching with technology is it is just so easy to say to students, all right, we're going to spend the last 10 minutes of class on our math practice website, and say, here's the assignment. And one option is I circulate around the room and I look at the data and I figure out who I need to check in with, right? And try and support them. But it is just so easy to sit back and look at my screen and all the students look at their screens and just feel like I pushed the easy button for those 10 minutes. And it is totally possible to do that with a piece of paper, right? To hand out a piece of paper and say, great, you students do it, I'm going to sit over here. So I'm not saying this doesn't happen with paper and pencil, but I found the pull of my screen and the pull of their screens is just so much stronger to make me kind of like a passive observer in the classroom for chunks of time.
In terms of behavior in the class, did you find when you moved to pencil and paper, you had to deal with more behavior issues? Because screens were at least making them look like they were engaged, even though they weren't. Did you then have to kind of change your teaching that way?
I think a little bit. I think it wasn't huge. I would say definitely like the class feels more energetic, right? There's more like energy and momentum for me to corral as a teacher. Yeah. There's some different stuff, right? Yeah. Like I don't have to deal with students like doing some of the things they can do with a computer that are way worse than what they can do with a piece of paper, right? In terms of like messaging each other or some things like that we've run into as a school.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's nice not to deal with those. But I would say like on an everyday basis, like the energy leads to some more kind of lower level stuff, but stuff that bothers every teacher that I have to respond to. Yeah.
And that energy can be a good thing, right? For sure. Yeah. Like you want that.
Yeah. I mean,
you want a class filled with energy, right?
I would say there's.
Do you want a bunch of zombies or do you want
higher variability? Higher variability for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you could go back to the very beginning, right? How would you introduce technology differently? Or would you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because like I think a lot of the technology I used has shaped me as a teacher. I think a lot of the different dynamic online resources have really helped broaden my horizons in terms of what math can be and the types of problems we can ask students. You know, I still love Desmos activities. I think they have so many interesting ways to get students thinking hard about connections and the different ways that we can visualize math and the ways we can represent mathematical ideas. Now I just do them by projecting an activity up front. And I have students answer on mini whiteboards or discuss with a turn and talk. And I'm not sure I would have started doing that, right, if I hadn't had the experience of using them in the like student-facing version first. So I don't know. I think I've benefited a lot from technology, and I think a lot of that learning has kind of shaped the teacher I am now.
Just for our listeners, could you explain what Desmos activities are?
I was going to ask the same thing.
So, I mean, it's a company that's been around for over 10 years that makes dynamic math activities. So the idea is to kind of show students what that math looks like in action. So an example we used today is we were doing some problems about inequalities, where the answer might be like x is less than 4. Okay. And the way the Desmos activity for this works that we were looking at today, it's called Shira the sheep. And Shira is a sheep who wants to eat grass. And so x is less than 4. Imagine you plop Shira down on the number 4. And since it's less than, Shira goes to the, towards the negative direction, right? Or towards 0. And then so Shira gets to eat all that grass, right? And so the question is like, how can we optimize how much grass Shira eats? And okay, does she get to eat more if there's x is less than 6, right? And you can imagine different configurations of grass and water we don't want Shira to fall into. And then we start to solve different types of inequalities where it might be 5x is less than 15. And it's a way of kind of visualizing what that solution set looks like. And so the way I used it is I did a quick little activity to show students Shira the sheep. And, we like did like 2 or 3 different problems that we project, and we can see what happens and we can see the results of that calculation. And then we went from there to something separate with paper and pencil on how we graph inequalities, right? You take a number line, you shade in all the numbers less than 4, right? To kind of use that physical representation to give students an anchor into like what we mean when we shade those things in.
Good, thank you. Yeah. Now, it's kind of funny times right now because, on one hand, a lot of people are having this conversation about, getting kids off cell phones, technology, but we're also entering the AI world. It's like we're going in too direct. Which way are we going to go? Do you have concerns about AI? Do you think we're suddenly, we say, oh, look what cell phones did to us, and suddenly here comes AI, and we're all jumping on that bandwagon now. What is your view of our future and what maybe we should do to be just a little careful with this?
So I would say I have very strong opinions about AI. And the first two things that come to mind, number one, AI is most powerful right now for people who have a lot of knowledge in a domain. A knowledgeable, skilled teacher might be able to use AI to come up with additional examples, right? Or to find ways to amplify what they already know how to do. Someone who has no idea how to teach will end up getting generic advice that they struggle to understand and struggle to implement well, and it won't help them become a better teacher.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a teaching example, but I think that's true across different
For
domains.
many things, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So our job is to help students develop expertise before they use AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they become dependent on it. And that's something I'm observing. You know, I don't use Chromebooks in classrooms very often now. I've used them twice since January. And but I still see students in homeroom, right, working on assignments for other classes, and I talk to them about their work in other classes. And one thing I feel alarmed by is I'm seeing a lot of students become dependent on AI as soon as something becomes hard. They've developed this habit where as soon as they don't know something, they want AI to do it for them. And I think that habit has the potential to cripple students. If that becomes the way they look at the world, they're not going to develop that expertise, right? Where they become someone who is amplified by AI, they become dependent on it. And I think the future, in my best estimation, is a place where humans still need expertise, and we have more and more powerful tools to amplify expertise. And our job as teachers is to help students see that they need to use their own brain, right? And to show them what their brains can do, and to not allow them to get in the habit of outsourcing their thinking to AI at the first sign of difficulty.
Yeah. Dylan, that really mirrors what we had. We had a guest on. His name was Andrew Cantarutti, and he really talks about the cognitive offloading that happens when schools allow students to use AI to do their thinking. Learning is hard, as we've said. It's messy. You know, you could get a class that would brainstorm story ideas, and they might be just, superheroes and things that aren't really that creative. So you get AI to do it for you, and suddenly they look amazing, but the thinking was not done.
It's not their ideas.
They don't have that skill level yet, right?
Yeah, totally.
And that's the danger.
And I agree with you, and I would really emphasize, like, it's not just about the lost learning from that activity. For me, it's about the habits I'm seeing students build, where they then, in a different class, where they aren't allowed to use AI, are more likely to give up. And are more likely to just throw in the towel when things get hard, because of that experience of being able to outsource their thinking when things get hard.
You used the term collective effervescence, right? So why is social learning so important to math?
I think social learning is important to everything, right? So here's an example I like to use. I am slowly, over time, working on my Spanish skills. I have a lot of students and families who speak Spanish as their first language, and I'm trying to get better at speaking Spanish. And I really struggle to motivate myself a lot of the time, right? And here's something I would benefit from. Like, what if, like, once a week there was a meetup where people who were all trying to learn Spanish all got together, and I had that accountability, right? There's other humans there who were like, hey, where's Dylan? Is Dylan coming this week? That would really help me be more consistent in my Spanish learning, right? You go down that road and you're like, okay, what if we all got together at the same time? What if we found someone and we all chipped in, and this person had some expertise, right? And they could help to guide us in our journeys. And all of a sudden we've invented classrooms and teachers, right? And and it wouldn't be perfect, but that social accountability of someone else doing the same thing I'm doing, I think can help to motivate people and get people into routines, right? Where every day we show up to this room at 10:34 a.m. and we all do math together, and this weird guy makes some jokes and tells us that here's this thing that we should try to learn, right? And so I think there's just this basic wiring of humans where we want to do things together, and I think schools are imperfect places. Like what I described is not a fairy tale for everyone, but it is in the words of Winston Churchill, it's the worst way of education ever invented, except for all the others.
I love it.
And so I think when screens are in the room, often the premise of screens is trying to quote unquote personalize learning, right? Where everyone's doing something slightly different.
Yeah.
And I think that breaks down those social bonds, right? When I say, hey, we're going to learn something together about inequalities, and I'm going to give you a piece of paper with 8 inequality questions, and we're all going to try those questions on our own. And then we're going to talk about them, and we're going to say, hey, here are some common places we're seeing people get stuck, right? And then we're going to try and figure out and work through that stuff together. Like it sounds basic and boring, and it's not perfect, but I think it's one of the best tools we have to get students learning in this like public education system that we're working under.
And I think community is so important, and we've lost that. And schools are like one of the last places where you can still have community.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be at home and order everything, get food delivered, never see anybody, go to the store, use the checkout machine, not talk to the cashier. So community is quickly disappearing. So schools is the one place where you have to learn how to work together.
Yeah.
And if we take that away and they're suddenly in front of screens, then that's it.
Yeah. I was talking with some colleagues recently about how, for some reason where I live, it's pretty common for students to enroll in online school and to try out online school. And by common, I mean it's not like everyone, right? But like we'll see a handful of students a year, right? And I was talking with colleagues because we were kind of comparing notes around some students who we had talked to. And over again, we hear this story of a student who goes and tries online school, right? Because they're frustrated and they feel like school isn't moving fast enough for them or whatever. And over again, they come back. They're like, oh, I was bored. Yeah. I'd rather be able to see my friends in the hall between classes. Yeah. And it sounds so simple, but like that community makes such a difference, right? And we have all these amazing educational tools. I have no doubt that you can teach yourself the content that we want students to learn in public education online, but a lot of students aren't choosing it.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, and that option's available, right? If that's what you need, great. The option is available to you, but we are seeing students choose community.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Where do you see us in 5 years and the way technology is going? Are we good at it? Because it's hard to tell, isn't it, really, right now? Because I think there's a lot of debate back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know.
Where do you hope to see us? Where do you hope to see us?
Yeah. I will say, I don't feel like I have been very successful at changing people's minds. Just in my networks, in my school. The school board asked me to come and talk to them after the Atlantic article. They were very nice. They were very receptive, right? But I've seen no sign that we're making any substantive changes as a district. I think one thing that is a really strong pull towards technology right now is the testing and accountability regime, right? Like all of our tests are online. And that's true, I think, across all of the U.S. and maybe across much of the world. And I think that means that schools are still going to have to invest in a lot of technology. And I think it's going to be hard to justify saying, hey, we can't use this stuff if we're spending all this money buying it and keeping it around. So my guess is that we're going to see it decrease. My guess is that we're going to see curriculum adoptions are going to lean towards paper and pencil first curricula, right? I think that's one shift that I think is already underway from what I'm hearing anecdotally, right? And that's not that adopting paper and pencil means you can't use technology, right? But at least saying we're not going to make teachers use technology with some of these technology first curricula. I think that's one trend that I think is pretty likely to continue. My guess is that we see an equilibrium with a little bit less technology, a little more skepticism, a little more paper and pencil, and probably still a lot of variation, school to school, teacher to teacher, room to room. So
Well, Dylan, don't give up on your ability to change people's minds, right? I think keep doing what you're doing and writing. And
I'll keep trying.
Is it mainly Substack where you write some articles on? Where else can people find you? If they if they're going to listen to this podcast, they want to hear more from Dylan, go to Substack.
51213. 51213 is the name of my favorite triangle and also the name of my Substack.
Oh, okay, good.
And you can come read along there. And that's I don't do much besides the Substack. So
yeah. What do A lot of people like Substack a little more. They feel it's a little more in depth than other social media. Are you finding that? Like, at least it's long form?
Yeah, I've been blogging since I think 2013, and I was on WordPress for a long time. And back then there was a very strong teacher community on Twitter, right? And so most teachers would find blogs on Twitter and talk about them on Twitter. And that community still exists in some form, but it's not nearly as strong. And sharing links on Twitter is not nearly as powerful as it used to be. And so I changed to Substack just because it was the way to kind of keep some semblance of community, right? Keep people commenting and telling me when I'm wrong. And I think it's a perfectly nice place. I really miss the teacher internet of 2014, 2015, that era. And so I won't say Substack is perfect. It is the best tool I've found, and it's been a nice place for me to find some folks to just talk about teaching with.
Well, thank you. Yes. Thank you, Dylan. We really appreciate this conversation, and we really enjoyed having you on After the Bell.
Yep. Thanks for having me. So much fun to talk to you guys.
So there you go. A visit to Colorado and Dylan Kane.
Yeah. The elevation didn't bother me at all.
No, I'm not too dizzy at all. I was impressed with him.
Yes.
I really was. He just had a calm intelligence about him. Like, I say that sincerely. Like, I just enjoyed his take on things, his balanced view.
Yep. It just is like, this is what I did. These are the things that I've seen, and and then our listeners and our viewers can do with it what they want.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the way it should be. It's the difficulty with technology. There's always that fear of missing out. Right. If we don't get our students into technology, then they're going to be behind. Remember how long ago was it that everyone has to do coding? We have to code because all the jobs in the future will be coding. Where did those jobs go?
Yeah, I know. AI is doing it, right? and obviously, the time it took then to spend on coding actually took away from building community in the class or reading skills or real math skills. That's the problem. The day doesn't get longer, so it takes away from something. We need to reestablish what schools should be about, I think. And I think that's his purpose and focus.
And I love that, we have talked to more than one person. And talking about that, maybe we need to kind of take a look at how we're using technology and move it back a bit. Andrew Cantaruni, we talked about that, about how to use attention as commodity in the classroom and building
Good
that.
Word for it,
And then the whole idea of creating an analog class where we're getting students to be more involved in the sensory experience of school. And I remember reading a long time ago that if you want to make something more meaningful for your students, right, involve as many senses as possible. Right? And that big tactile sense. I think that is so important. And I know we've gone very far away from the tactile part because there are a lot of students who have difficulty just writing and printing, and so, I think it's great that some people are putting a pause.
Yes,
they're not anti-technology, but they're trying to find. Let's find that balance.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of saying the analog classroom, and obviously doesn't mean going back to slate boards in the 1890s,
no chalk,
right? But
you couldn't even find chalk.
Yeah, but we want to hear from listeners. Like, what are some of your thoughts about that? How would you envision a classroom that has less technology in? Because the Stunt Brothers, Roy and I, we're planning to put together a book called The Analog Classroom. I'm not sure of the final title for it, but I really think the time has come to help people kind of get back to that hands-on, outdoors, play-based world that is not just saying, well, the easy way is just to put a kid in front of a screen.
Yep.
Right? So let us know what would work, like real maps on the walls. And there's all kinds of things that we have
real
moved away
trees
from.
Behind us.
Yeah. And that's why it's been perfect, this episode, right? Here's the Analog Podcast out in nature, out in the garden.
It's that fine balance of the appropriate use of technology and then the rest of the outdoors.
We are practicing Dylan Kane's words here, right?
Yes.
So thanks, listeners. Check us out on Facebook, on our Facebook page, After the Bell. Check us out on our podcast. Go to stuntbrothers.ca and stay healthy, stay happy, stay fit, and we'll talk to you again on After the Bell.
Bye.
This podcast is organic, taking shape with each episode. Building resiliency for teachers everywhere.
That sounds great.
And our website is stuntbrothers.ca.
That's stuntbrothers.ca.
We will chat again.
After the Bell.